The plan was cruel from the start, a joke gone too far, designed to humiliate a man who already had too little left to lose. Ryan Hayes, a single father and struggling waiter, was barely holding life together when his so-called friends decided to have some fun. They told him about a blind date they'd arranged through a mutual friend. They said the woman was sweet but a little different, and that he should just be polite. What they didn't say was that the woman was paralyzed from the waist down and that they were watching from across the restaurant, waiting to laugh at his discomfort. The restaurant was the kind of upscale place Ryan could never afford to dine in. He stood outside for a moment, straightening the sleeves of his faded shirt, the one he usually wore to church or job interviews. His stomach twisted with anxiety. It had been years since he'd gone on a date, and he'd almost canceled twice. But deep down, he wanted to believe in something good again. A chance. A person. Hope. He walked inside, unaware that he was walking into a trap. If you believe in empathy, second chances, and the power of kindness, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes, the most beautiful people are the ones the world underestimates. He was led to a quiet corner table, and there she was, his date. A woman in her early 30s, seated in a wheelchair, dressed simply yet elegantly. Her long dark hair framed a soft face that looked both nervous and kind. When she smiled, it wasn't forced. It was shy, genuine. Her name was Elise. Ryan froze for a moment. Not because she was in a wheelchair, but because she looked so fragile, as if the world had already judged her 1,000 times before. He smiled and sat down. "You must be Elise. I'm Ryan," he said gently. Her eyes lit up with relief. "Hi, Ryan. I wasn't sure you'd come." "Of course," he replied. "I'm glad to be here." She relaxed, her shoulders loosening, and they began to talk. Her voice was soft, her words thoughtful. She loved books, classical music, and said she worked in the family business. She didn't elaborate, and Ryan didn't ask. He didn't want to pry. He found her easy to talk to, her laugh unguarded and melodic. When the waiter came to take their order, he noticed Ryan's friends snickering in the far corner. They had their phones out recording. His chest tightened when he realized what they'd done. They'd set him up. But Ryan didn't flinch. He turned back to Elise and smiled wider, asking about her favorite foods, her hobbies, what made her happiest. He made her laugh, really laugh, and when the waiter brought their meals, he gently moved her plate closer without making a fuss. His friends' laughter echoed in the distance, but he ignored them. Elise didn't notice. For her, it was the first time in a long while that someone looked at her as a woman, not a condition. Halfway through dinner, one of Ryan's friends stumbled over, pretending to check in. He smirked at Elise and said loudly, "Man, you weren't kidding!" "Guess she really can't walk away if the date goes bad, huh?" Elise froze. Her smile vanished. Her hands trembled under the table. The restaurant went silent. Ryan stood up slowly, anger radiating from his usually gentle face. "You need to leave," he said firmly. His friend laughed awkwardly. "Relax, it's just a joke." "No," Ryan said, his voice trembling. "It's cruelty dressed as humor. And I'm done pretending it's okay." The man muttered something under his breath and left, embarrassed. Ryan sat back down, his expression softening as he looked at Elise. She was silent, her eyes glassy. "I'm so sorry," he said quietly. "You didn't deserve that." She swallowed hard. "It's okay. I'm used to it." "No one should ever get used to being humiliated," Ryan said. His tone was sincere, protective. "People see what's different instead of what's beautiful." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Elise smiled faintly. "You're different, Ryan," he shrugged. "Maybe just tired of watching people get hurt." Dinner continued in quiet peace. By the time they finished dessert, she was laughing again. When the check came, Ryan insisted on paying, even though it would mean skipping lunch tomorrow. As he helped wheel her toward the door, the manager approached. "Sir," he said kindly, "your meal has already been taken care of." Ryan frowned. "What? By who?" The manager smiled. "The lady you were dining with." He turned to Elise in surprise, but she just smiled mischievously. "I wanted to," she said softly. Outside, rain began to fall lightly, glistening under the streetlights. Ryan offered his jacket, holding it above her head as they waited for her car. "Thank you," she whispered. "For not making tonight about what I can't do." He smiled. "I didn't see any of that. I just saw you." The next morning, Ryan went back to his job at a small cafe downtown. It was a busy day, orders piling up, trays clattering, but he couldn't stop thinking about Elise. Then, just after noon, a group of sharply dressed men and women entered. They were from the upper floors of the city's biggest company, Langford Industries. At the center of the group was Elise. Only this time, she wasn't just the quiet woman from last night. She was in full control, her expression confident and composed. Ryan almost dropped the coffee pot. She noticed him instantly and smiled. After the meeting ended, she wheeled over to the counter. "Hi, Ryan," she said softly, her tone playful. "You look surprised?" He blinked. "You work here?" She chuckled. "Not quite. I own the company across the street." His jaw nearly dropped. "You're the CEO?" She nodded. "Elise Langford. I wanted to tell you last night, but I didn't want that to be the reason you were kind to me." Ryan swallowed hard. "You didn't have to explain. Kindness shouldn't need a reason." She smiled warmly. "And that's exactly why I'm here. I saw what you did, how you handled those men, how you stood up for me when no one else did." Her gaze softened. "Langford Industries needs people like you. Would you come work for me?" He blinked, stunned. "Me? But I'm just—" "Not just anything," she interrupted gently. "You're someone who sees people for who they are, not what they look like. That's rare." Tears welled in his eyes as he nodded, unable to speak. From that day on, Ryan's life began to change. Elise visited often, sometimes just to talk. Over months, friendship grew into something deeper, an unspoken bond built on respect, kindness, and shared scars. One evening, years later, Ryan stood beside Elise on a balcony overlooking the city. Their hands brushed together as laughter echoed below. "You know," she said softly, "I still remember that night, when they tried to humiliate you for sitting with me." He smiled. "They didn't humiliate me. They taught me something." "What's that?" "That love doesn't walk, it waits. And when it shows up, you hold on. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes the people the world pities are the ones who end up changing it. And before you go, comment below, what would you have done if you were in Ryan's place? Because kindness doesn't cost much, but it can rewrite someone's story forever.